has many styles of architecture. Victorian houses in Old Louisville, shotgun houses in Butchertown, and the cast iron facade buildings on Main Street. But it was the Art Deco style of architecture that inspired a nation through the heart of the Depression. This unique and animated style of architecture continues to excite us today. Its elements can be seen in some of our newer buildings, and some of the details can be found in some of the cars and vehicles we drive today. In this episode of Renovate Louisville, we'll take a look at Louisville's own Art Deco buildings.
Hi everyone, I'm Ramey, and welcome to this episode of Renovate Louisville, where we'll explore some examples of Art Deco architecture here in Louisville. Architectural styles often serve as a time capsule for a city, representing a specific period of time, and Art Deco architecture in Louisville is no exception. The Art Deco style evolved from many sources and incorporated features such as cubic forms, a terrace pyramid style with each story smaller than the one below it, complex groupings of geometric shapes, bands of color, zigzag designs, and symbolic images. This style rejected the formality of earlier styles and embraced a new, more modern form of architecture and aesthetic. Art Deco buildings are a representation of the machine age and industrial revolution.
The fire department headquarters and really the Art Deco style in general represents a time capsule of Louisville's architectural history. They represent a time period when Louisville was looking forward to the future.
Construction began in 1936 on the Louisville Fire Department headquarters building. This building was built as a Works Project Administration project and dedicated just prior to the Great Flood of 1937. At the time, the city was facing severe economic distress due to the Depression, and the Art Deco style chosen for this building reflects that time period.
In the fire department headquarters, you have a central seal that shows a woman standing with a flag emblazoned with the word progress. Behind her is the skyline of the city of Louisville. To her right is a steamship, and to her left is a series of railroad tracks. Both reflect the idea of modernity, of progress, of speed, of advances in technology.
The fire department headquarters also demonstrates a key element of Art Deco style buildings, the step back or terrace pyramid design. Another public structure, Firehouse Number 9, built in 1946 and located in the Smoketown neighborhood, demonstrates Art Deco style architecture in a much different manner.
The economic realities of the day for the city of Louisville would have meant that they couldn't afford a lavish firehouse. So perhaps that's the reason why this particular building is so streamlined and so simplified in terms of its architectural detailing. This building is a single bay structure that is quite streamlined in terms of its style and also in terms of its size. You see here a contrast between the masonry construction, the brick, along with the contrasting concrete. This particular building has only a single bay for its fire truck. That single bay is announced by the fact that there is sort of a banding of masonry around that firehouse door. Some of the other hallmarks of the Art Deco style that you'll see here at Firehouse Number 9 include the curved corner of the building toward the east side, along with design elements that are in low relief, very streamlined, modern style architectural detail that would speak to progress, the machine age, the industrial revolution, that sort of thing.
In 1947, a building designed by a New York architectural firm was constructed at the corner of 6th and Broadway to house the Courier-Journal and Louisville Times newspapers. The building uses a hallmark of the Art Deco style, a curvy linear corner that wraps around the street corner and is a rigid, solid masonry structure. Streamlined lines and a band of color created by the ribbon of green-tinted windows are all elements of Art Deco style.
One of the hallmarks of this particular building happens to be the timepiece that's emblazoned on the Broadway side of the building. That would certainly indicate that the Courier-Journal was creating a chronology of events that happened.
The Courier-Journal building also incorporates a number of symbolic images. A number of these are found just above the main entryway. One will also find a bronze plaque of an old-time printing press on the Broadway side of the building. The AT&T or South Central Bell building was constructed in 1930 at 11 stories and has a 7-story addition on its west side.
It epitomizes the Art Deco style because it has all of those quintessential elements of the style present on the building. It has the setback or the stepped building outline. It has simplified ornamentation. It has geometric designs, everything from zigzag to circles, and it is absolutely the best example of Art Deco style here in the city of Louisville.
Another feature of this building is the distinct entryways on the chestnut side of the building.
They feature rich carved limestone along with decorative brass grills up above. On either side are intricately detailed light fixtures that really add to the entryway and set it off as a point of entry. The building is really in excellent shape. I think it speaks to the value of the Art Deco style that this building has stood the test of time.
Not all buildings are able to withstand the test of time. Many buildings fall into disrepair, and sometimes only the building's facade remains to remind people of what once stood in that location. Even though downtown Louisville was home to many entertainment houses, movie theaters, and playhouses, all that is left of the Ohio Theater today is the signage and marquee.
Art Deco was used on movie theaters in particular because movies were so popular at the same time that Art Deco was a popular form of architecture. The thing that appealed to the public about the Art Deco style, particularly for movie theaters, was that you could very easily announce the use and the name of the building.
While some buildings vanish, others are left behind in a state of disrepair.
This is a building that still needs some attention to preserve it because it certainly is special and unique to our community. This building is the Jones Dabney Varnish Company building, and it's a great example of streamlined modern architecture. And of course, you can see the curved walls, the smooth surfaces. It's got a horizontal feel, but there's also some verticality, which is kind of that crossing of Art Deco and streamlined modern. The balustrade at the entrance, it curves around to match the curve in the building, which is a really nice detail. But you also notice that the windows are missing in the building. They were actually steel windows that followed the curve inside.
During the 1930s, Art Deco architecture evolved into a more simpler style. Streamlined modern came into play as the scientific community was developing more efficient transportation modes. The teardrop form came into focus as that curved surface was a way to increase the speed and motion of objects. That design concept was applied to automobiles, trains, planes, and even our basic culture with vacuum cleaners and telephones. Technological advancements and new construction techniques helped translate this design into architecture, creating a sense of motion and progress in new buildings.
You think about the idea of showing that you're a progressive and efficient business, streamlining would fit your role perfectly because it would present a modern appearance to the public, and then the idea that the product itself that they were producing would be associated with a modern, progressive image.
Construction on this building was completed in July 1941, just before the dawn of World War II, and was built as a bottling plant for the Coca-Cola Company. Coca-Cola still uses the building today. Streamlined Art Modern has a horizontal emphasis as opposed to the more vertical style of Art Deco. Streamlined Modern has a lack of ornamentation and is more simplified, and the surface materials are smooth.
This building is a streamlined piece. You see the banding at the top as well. They've got the concrete and then the brick and then concrete, brick. That mixing of the materials makes another characteristic of the streamlined features, and that the smooth concrete comes around and curves around. Another thing about this building is the interior is still intact. In the main lobby area, it's very much a high classic style, streamlined modern interior. It's got a curved lobby space. There's a dramatic staircase that curves all the way up to the next floor. And there's a Saturn style lamp that sits over the receptionist's desk that was perfectly scaled for the building. It's really wonderful to see something like this still intact, because a lot of times with buildings, they do change over time, but to keep those historic features intact is very important.
The 800 block of 15th Street is home to another streamlined modern building in Louisville, originally built for the Bernheim Distillery bottling plant.
As you can see, it's got the curved linear walls, and it uses glass block, which is a modern material at the time. Streamlined Modern was really emphasizing the use of modern materials to help emphasize its progressive character. You'll also notice there's curved concrete, and that it's a very smooth surface, which is to evoke that sense of motion and streamlining efficiency. Most interesting probably architectural feature in the entrance piece is the canopy that's over the door, as well as the metalwork on the door, which which is highly articulated, which is a little bit of a holdover from Art Deco, but you'll see that in a lot of buildings where there'll be a hybridization of Art Deco and streamlined modern. And it also evokes the sense of a nautical feel. You can see the lantern piece that's still intact at the entrance has a very much of a ship-like appearance, as well as the curving of the facade. It was during the Depression. Streamlined Modern was promoted by companies as a way to sell their product. So they would put out competitions for architects to design modern buildings using their materials and products. And this, one of those types of products was glass block.
Another one of those products was structural glass.
On a sunny day when you drive by here, this thing is going to twinkle.
Tim Dunn is a vitrolite specialist working on restoring the facade to this storefront on Bardstown Road using an adhesive product made in St. Matthews.
Just bottom line, the cost is cheaper to repair what you got than to take it out. It's probably one of the nicest looking storefronts you can get, if you like the style. You know, I mean, it's clean, it's slick. I mean, it stands out. That was the whole idea during the 30s when they had the contest, Modernize Main Street. A lot of these buildings were done, and you know, ultimately it was to make your storefront stand out.
One can find examples of streamlined architecture in more than industrial buildings in Louisville. In fact, one building may have you ready to take flight. Constructed in 1929 as Louisville's first airport, Bowman Field is one great example of this architectural style.
The building itself is a combination of Art Deco and streamlined modern design, and of course, this being a transportation-related facility, it works perfectly that they decided to use that style of architecture. The Art Deco characteristics are the verticality. You've got the engaged pilasters. You've also got the low relief carvings, which have the wings, which relate to it being an airport. That's really a neat feature. They also use some streamlining with the concrete, given the smooth surfaces of the concrete that band across the building.
Another prominent feature is the entry on both sides of the building. These entrances are framed with stonework that steps back in a classic Art Deco style. And the original neon sign was a very modern component at that time.
The glass control tower on top of the building is actually integrated into the building, which is an interesting feature because today's airports you always see the control tower away from the terminal building, but in this case it's actually integrated into the building and makes a unique characteristic for the building. The airport still continues to be an airport, so the building is in its original use. They've adapted the building to some other uses as well, but the historic setting is still intact for the building, and it gives you a real sense of what it was like when it was first built in 1929.
Art Deco architecture's influence can still be found all around us today.
You'll still see elements of Art Deco and streamlined modern being used in today's products and buildings. And you can look at the Chevrolet HH and the PT Cruiser as an example of how cars are still using streamlining design. And our Aegon Tower in downtown is very much playing off Art Deco design.
Art Deco architecture laid the groundwork for many architectural styles, like Art Moderne, and even buildings that have been constructed more recently in Louisville, like Michael Graves' Humana building on Main Street and the Aegon Tower. So take some time, get out of your car, and explore Louisville's history through its architecture. I'm Ramey, and thanks for joining us for this episode of Renovate Louisville.
You're watching Metro TV, a public service of Louisville Metro government.